Welcome to Season 3, Episode 9 of the DSC Podcast. We're here to talk about trades. But first and foremost, we're sponsored by the Delaney Hockey Program. www.delaneyhockey.ca. Ooh, interesting. We're going to talk about trades. Did you know that Keith Delaney, co-owner of the Delaney Hockey Program, when he was a junior hockey player, was traded for Sheldon Keefe?
Ooh.
So there's your little Leafs connection.
We essentially know Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, through association.
Oh, way back.
Why not?
I met him last week.
Yeah, I forgot.
Oh, God, Paddy. All right, titter tatter, let's get at her. All right, welcome to it. It's episode 9 of the DSC Podcast. We got myself, Ryan Gates. We got Paddy Phillips. We got Kylie Murren and the Chihuahua.
Oh, wait. He's here. Hi.
Hi, which one? This
is Kobe.
Kobe? Yeah, he's always on this up,
Kobe.
isn't he?
Oh, he always, Casey's in her bed. She'll go be by herself. But this guy, no, has to be on top of me all the time. And if I ignored him, he would just sit there and, paw at me, so I have to pick him up.
Yeah. Listen, there's worse things in life. We're not here to talk about dogs. It is Deke Snipe Silly. It's got nothing to do with dogs. It's all hockey
Snipe
and
Silly.
Yeah. Oh my God!
Are you going to trade your dogs? That could be not happening.
No.
Trade the cat. You have the cat.
Would you trade the cat for Travis Konechny? Is the question.
Yeah. No. You're going, buddy.
And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about trades. It's been a real busy week for Kyle Dubas. Kyle Dubas, the man with the giant cojones.
Yeah.
Right? He's made more moves in this pre-deadline than I think the Leafs have made in 3-4 years combined. Maybe if not total number of moves, more impactful moves anyway. So I think that's what we'll focus in on. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it hard. And why don't we do it in chronological order, because that's the easiest way to remember how this all went down.
Yeah.
Good call. How far do we want to go back? Want to start with Ryan O'Reilly? Is that far enough back?
Yeah, I think so.
Real sports when it happened.
Well, I mean, anything back further than that, you're talking about Connor Timmins, which again I think is still as impactful a trade as any of the other ones he's made. Maybe not any, but I think it's a hugely impactful trade to the organization now and going forward. But we won't talk about that. We talk about him on the regular anyway. So Ryan O'Reilly, what went out, what came back? Either one of you guys can grab that.
I think it was a brilliant move. You know what? I was really high on O'Reilly at first when trade chatter started picking up, and then other folks started coming into play, like Kane. I was still from day one. I knew it was necessary. The Leafs had to get some more offensive punch, and it seems like every trade deadline they go for that more of the defensive forwards. Just so happened we got it offense and defense in O'Reilly, especially when you get that hat trick, and you can see he has a presence out there. To be honest with you, I knew who Noel Sherry was, but
I only knew the guy really from the whole Boston series. I knew the name. I could picture Jack Edwards in my head, like a Cherry, But just mention, we got Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Cherry. It was a 3-team trade. We sent forwards Mikhail Abramov and Adam Gaudette and a 2023 first-round draft pick. Ottawa's 2023 third-round selection that we got from the Murray thing, and the Leafs' 2024 second-round choice to St. Louis. And we know now that Minnesota was part of it to help take some of the money. And that just wanted to throw that out there for anyone who didn't know the full details of it.
And that's what cost all the picks was, over 75% of O'Reilly's salary was retained between two teams.
Right.
Yeah, which was excellent. Because,
clearly the big player is Ryan O'Reilly, and that's going to be the big acquisition unless something else happens while we're recording this podcast. But the Noel Cherry thing, I find the most interesting part. Everyone, you know what you're getting in Ryan O'Reilly. You're getting a guy who's tooth and nail. He just doesn't stop. There's no quit in his game. He's defense, he's offense, he's a leader, he's total package. He's the reason why any team would like to have him. Won a Conn Smythe, won a cup. But Noel Acciari is a really great conversation piece because you're right. I remember him from the Boston era, and I remember him as being one of those annoying guys who tended to score on the Leafs. We should have. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, why is this guy scoring on the Leafs? He's a fourth liner. And I do remember saying that.
Nobody, right?
Yeah.
We've never had the annoying guy in this era.
No.
We've never had that guy that goes in and just, like a Nick Paul, scores 2 goals in Game 7.
Yeah.
Right? Well, hopefully he'll be our Game 7 superhero. Who knows?
I've got some other theories as to who I want that guy to be, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But I found it fascinating when they brought Acciari in to see his level of physicality, because I didn't know that. Like, I don't remember that. And I guess when you're playing on the Bruins and everybody is playing that physical, it probably doesn't stand out. But he packs a lot of punch, man. Like, he drives hard to the net on every single play. Every play, right? He's hard on the wall. I don't know. I like the guy. I think if you're looking for depth forwards, I mean, why not? He's basically
we need guys that don't take shifts off, really, at the end of the day. Like, because we've had too many over the years that have taken shifts off. But funny story, when that trade went down, I was probably 10 sheets to the wind at Real Sports pretty late at night with my brother.
Our FaceTime call.
Oh, we remember.
Yes. You remember? Yeah.
I was drinking too that night. That was
see it going across the ticker on the big, I'm going to call it the big Jumbotron at Real Sports in Toronto. Sport. And I say, like, I immediately, like, just sobered up. I'm like, we got Ryan O'Reilly. And then I'm like...
I beg to differ with this story. He did not sober up. He opened his eyes, potentially. Because
I'll tell you my story. Hold on, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. But we were in Montreal while that came through. We were at a party at the hotel, but we were down in like the basement of the hotel. I had absolutely no service. Okay, so I'm like checking my phone, sipping a couple adult bevvies, and the guy across the table from us, which I have no idea who he was, because it was all the Paradise parents. Like, we only know our team. There's 3 teams at this hotel, or 4. He's like, I heard him talking to the guy, and he said something about Leaf Scott O'Reilly, and I was like, shut up. And he just like looked at me. I'm like, are you serious? And I couldn't get my phone to work. So I'm like freaking out at Adam. I'm like, we gotta go upstairs. We gotta go. As soon as I got up to have service, you guys, I seen like the call in our group chat, and I was just like freaking out. So anyway, I'll never forget it. So I'm sure you won't either, Paddy, because it's not like you're home on your couch,
I was going from table to table up there, the fool that I am. And you know what? No one had a clue who Ron O'Reilly was, or if the Leafs were in the NHL. It was not the crowd there that night that were...
You'd think they're Real Sports. There would
I know, you would think. I know.
Well, you would think there'd be fans in the stands at the ACC, but there's not. So,
yeah.
True.
I'm not surprised to hear that. It's shocking, but it's not surprising. Here's my version of the same story. Back in good old Newfoundland, when my friends Kylie and Paddy are away on the mainland enjoying adult beverages at a reasonable hour, it's 1:30 in the morning in Newfoundland, and I'm asleep in my bed like a normal person should be. Yeah. And Sling goes to phone. First it was Paddy by himself, getting right off on the whole. So we talked about it for a better part of 10 minutes. My wife was like, is that Paddy? I was like, yeah. Luckily she loves Paddy. But yeah, so we talked about it. I hung up the phone, went back to bed, only to get another call, except this time in the group chat. And lo and behold, all 4 picked up, which is
that never happened.
Yeah, that never happens. Like, for starters, we never do group calls ever. So,
no.
But I guess everybody was jacked. And
that wasn't our first one, though. What was our first one?
I remember we got on Pocket Dial one time by accident. You were at.
And we all jumped on. I think I do remember. Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
A fantastic trade. Like.
Yeah.
You know what? You look at some of the other trades that were made in the NHL, i.e., Jeannot going to Tampa.
Wow, what an overpayment, in my opinion.
But like what we've paid for O'Reilly, like totally fair. I think the chances of him resigning back in Toronto are probably very, very, very good.
You think?
I think so. I think he'd want to. It comes down to the dollar value. Like,
but that's what I mean. Like, how? I mean, Ryan O'Reilly, even though he's only 31 or so, it's not old. I mean, he's still a $5 million player all day long on 3 years. I don't know how they can do that.
I'd go 5 times 3. That's the, like, I don't like going beyond 3 years for these guys that are older than 30.
Yeah, but I don't know if you can fit into 5. Not with Willie coming up the following year. Anyway, let's not talk about that. I agree. It would be great. I love it because one thing that I've noticed is holy hell, are we deadly on face-offs since O'Reilly came across? And I found it interesting because somebody asked him about it in the media. I think it was yesterday, and he said, yeah. He said, when you got John Tavares as the next man in, he said you don't mind being a little over-aggressive in the dot, and clearly that's made a difference, right? Yeah. So that's an aspect of this that never even dawned on me that centers are thinking about is I don't want to get tossed out because I don't want the winger to have to come in and try to win it. But when you got John Tavares, who is arguably as good as you are, well, no, I shouldn't say arguably, he is as good as he is. And it'd probably be the same if Tavares was taking the draw and had O'Reilly on the wing. Tavares would probably go harder too. And the man's won 70% of his draws roughly since coming over. It's nuts.
Not to forget either that Noel Acciari is also a centerman and a winger, but he can play center. He can take face-offs. So it's nice to have him as like that fourth line option because you don't want to take David Camp out of the circle, added a dot on the third line. So many options.
But yeah, what a total player too with O'Reilly. I mean, not take it away from Acciari again, but hard not to when you're talking Ryan O'Reilly. Ryan O'Reilly kills penalties. He does it all. Yeah. Like there's nothing this guy doesn't do. He's a total player, and still I won't say in his prime. Like he's not out of it. So I guess he still is in it if he's not out of it. But I mean, I think he's 31. I think if memory serves. But yeah, I mean he's an amazing. It was an amazing pickup. Amazing pickup 32. By Dubas.
So I was at that game.
He's a year younger than I am. He just turned 32 in February. So.
Okay.
So I was at that game, as you know, and to see him in warm up, the way he warms up before the game is just absolutely insane. He's so focused. He kind of reminds me of Tavares in some respects. Like you're so focused.
Did you see the whole like BioSteel thing? Did you see that in person?
I saw that in person actually because I was behind the bench for warm ups due to my great friend in Toronto. But I was right behind the bench and I saw him doing it. I didn't know what was going on. I would have thought it was water as well until I saw it on Twitter. But he was just like right there.
Yeah. I caught it as soon as he did it because the camera was on him like live.
Yeah, it was.
I seen the red liquid. I was like, he just doused himself, and then they reported on it.
I was thinking, like, how sticky is that?
One thing, as a total side note, just when I was down there for warm ups behind the bench, behind each gate on the Leafs bench, there's a picture of the 4 referees' faces, like with their names on it, and I had never seen that before.
Apparently, they asked Keith about that. I think it might have been last year or earlier this year. And he said he wants I remember reading about it, and he wants the players to know their names. So if they do have to address them, they can address them by their first name, I guess. And creates, I guess, is less hostile than like shouting at them. I guess if you know their first name and whatever. I don't know. I can see that though.
It is interesting though.
It's always more.
And the funny thing is, it's just like a photocopy. It's not like anything fancy or done up. It's just like.
Oh, I think they do it themselves. Like it's not like the league just says, okay, here's the refs, and they print that off. Like I feel like they make that themselves. But anyway, it's pretty interesting. Yeah. So on to the next trade.
Go for it.
So this one. So are we? Okay, wait. No, I was thinking that this happened before. So the next
Crazy Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it all, because the night before the craziness is when we got McCabe and Lafferty. Right? I was going on to Sandin, and I'm like, wait, we're forgetting something. So yeah, the night before, the Leafs, let's get the whole breakdown here. Leafs-Lafferty trade. So, from the Blackhawks, the Toronto Maple Leafs acquire Jake McCabe, come on phone, and Samuel Lafferty. I don't know if his name is Samuel. I'm just saying that.
She's just buying time here till her phone.
Yeah, because my phone is not wanting to work. Okay, so in exchange for yeah, I could tell a story and go off topic to completely buy more time, but we won't. So in exchange for a conditional 2025 first, a 2026 second, and forwards Joey Anderson, sad about that one, and Pavel Gugolev from the Growlers.
Do that trade all day long.
Oh, 100%. And not to mention, if I'm not mistaken, both McCabe and Lafferty have term.
Yes.
McCabe has 2 more years and Lafferty has 1.
1 after this year. And and I'm thinking both Acciari and O'Reilly don't have any.
I think Jake McCabe is your new Jake Muzzin. I think that's the sole reason for that trade. He's not going to be there for the playoffs. He may never play again. So if that's the case, then they've got a viable replacement for Jake Muzzin. If Jake Muzzin comes back, then they got a viable replacement cap-wise for Justin Hall. He's just a perfect fit.
Yep.
And he can play both sides, apparently, allegedly. I'm not a big fan of Jake McCabe from his defensive play. A couple of times this year when the Leafs played Chicago, McCabe got exposed bad by Matthews Marner line and or Matthews Nylander line, and just pylon I'm like, what were you doing, man? Like, thinking to myself, because a lot of people were talking about McCabe at that point. It was a lot of talk about McCabe being a viable option. That being said, am I glad they got him? Oh yeah, no, he's a great pickup. He's far better than at least one or two of the guys who were in our lineup currently, and that being at the time anyway, which was Sandin and Hall. Today, now future prospect on Sandin is much higher than Jake McCabe, obviously, but I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about today and the playoffs.
Sure.
So you can't be sad about any of those players going out, because I'd trade Mom right now for a solid chance to win that trophy. So there's not a ton to talk about there on the Sam Lafferty front for me. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I mean, I like that he's a little feisty and he got good foot speed. That's my two standout points from him.
Well, just back on McCabe for a second. One of the things that I've constantly heard since the trade is McCabe don't give up the puck. His first pass is very strong. I think we've seen some highlight reels of some of the vicious hits that he's had open ice and down along the boards. But I continuously hear, and Chicago's not a really good benchmark as to how he did as a defenseman, even though I think he was still a plus player.
He was. I remember seeing that stat as well. The whole team is like a minus something, like the team itself. But he was like the only plus out of the whole year or something. And that's why it's kind of hard to even judge them, like you were just saying, Ryan, when we played them. What were they competing for? They already knew they were, a dumpster dive for a team, and this year anyway. They knew Patty Kane was leaving. They knew, I don't know. I just feel like, not saying that was why he was bad, but at least now he has something to actually try harder for, if that makes sense.
Listen, you're not wrong. Anytime when a team has no real reason to play, whether you're a dedicated player or not, you're not going to be at peak performance. You don't have that adrenaline is not there, for one. It can't be.
Why am I going to go out and work my ass off and potentially get hurt or have a career-ending injury for a team that's literally a bottom feeder? I don't know. That would be the mentality, I would think. I know at the end of the day, they're still professionals, and you don't play well, you don't play. So, and then if you want it to be traded, you should be playing well. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for the guy, but it's also hard to judge him playing on such a bad team.
Well, the other thing is too, which there was a lot of talk about, the fact that some organizations and GMs really make you think how they get into those positions. One being Chicago's GM, the fact that he retained salary on a guy that's still got 2 years left is kind of a little bit unheard of.
Yeah, that's weird.
And we've got 4 or 5 defensemen now, if not 6 defensemen, with a salary going forward of $2 million and less. So our D, we don't have to go shopping for D in the summer.
Well, I mean, for years, that was the whole narrative around the Toronto Maple Leafs is, they got no D. Well, guess what? We got D now, right? No, they're not Jacob Chicharins, but we didn't need a Jacob Chicharin. We needed a stay-at-home, a Muzzin replacement, like you said. We don't need to score goals. We have that sometimes, most times. But yeah. I'm glad, we were talking about it last week, and I think it was you, Patty, that said, McCabe, hopefully the Leafs get McCabe. And I was like, no, I want Connor Murphy. But in the end of the day, they're kind of really similar players, so I'm happy either way. All right, so on to the next trade. This one, I'm still not over it. I can't, when I seen it pop up on my phone, I was literally I was talking to you guys. I was driving home, and I have a little thing in my car where my phone goes up, so I can kind of see it when I'm, glance. So my, the phone lights up, and I look over, and just in the corner of my eye, I seen the name Sandin. I pulled over so I could get on my phone. And at this point, I was at Dollarama. And yeah, my phone, I never called Adam so fast in my life. I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, the trade was that we traded Rasmus Sandin to Washington Capitals in exchange for veteran defenseman Erik Gustafsson. And we got a first rounder back for that, which is nice. I would have been happy with just a first rounder, but throwing in Gustafsson was just cherry on top, I guess. Just some more depth, some more D-dipped, and that was pretty much it for that trade. Nothing really, that was the beginning. That was the first domino falling of the day. I think that first rounder, because it's Boston's first rounder, so it's like, what is it going to be, 32nd overall? Like,
who cares? Yeah.
I feel like that he just got that as like a trade. So when I first seen that, I was like, oh, okay, that's to shed salary so we can reactivate Murray. And then, as I'm reading, boom, another one pops up. Do we want to move on?
Yep. Go.
Well, no, I want to talk about Sandin for a second. So
go ahead.
I'm to the point now with all the Leafs losses over the years. I'm to the point I don't really care. I have loyalty to some of the players. I did particularly to Sandin because I got Liljegren is turning out to be one of my most favorite players on the team, and the fact that he jumped over Sandin so surprisingly last year. I think Liljegren probably has a higher ceiling than Sandin right now. I don't know. When folks would ask me, like, when McCabe came in and this one came in and that one, who's going to be the odd one out in the playoffs?
It was Sandin.
I immediately went to Sandin or Hall.
Yeah.
Liljegren was not coming out of the window for me.
I know a lot of the chatter around is that Sandin asked for a trade and that he wasn't happy, and we don't know that until one of either Dubas or Sandin comes out and says it. However, they did say, I'm not sure if it was on Leafs Lunch or Overdrive, but they did say that as soon as that trade was made the night before with McCabe, Sandin's agent had reached out to Dubas and was like, because if we remember at the beginning of the season when he had his contract stalemate, that was the reason why he was holding off, was what is my role here? Like, what opportunity am I going to get? And I guess they promised him this, and this. So once they brought in another left-handed defenseman, it's just like, well, now I'm definitely not getting that opportunity. So I feel like he probably did request a trade, whether or not he thought it was going to happen so soon. But I think him holding out already kind of, I don't know.
He kind of alluded to it in his quote that he knew he was going to be the odd one out. So,
right. And I can't blame him. I could honestly probably see him coming back to the Leafs maybe once in the future. I don't know.
Never happens.
Unless we don't know how it happened. Did this go out really sour and bad? Does he hate Kyle Dubas? We don't know that.
I think you probably won't know, and we're probably reading too much into it. I think it's just, I really think it's a numbers game as well as anything. A lot of people are not talking about is that his contract would be due at the same time as William Nylander and Auston Matthews. Where's all the money coming from for all these people?
Liljegren's too, because didn't they both only sign the same contract?
And right now, I think it's really important for the Leafs to have, coming into that particular year, have cost certainty in a lot of areas. One being goaltending, the other being defense. And right now, we've got a lot of cost certainty starting to shape up on our D, so that you can start to plan around how we can and we will do it again.
Soon as July 1st happens, or whenever free agency starts this year, I'm not sure if it's the same as previous years, get Auston Matthews signed. I feel like if you hold out and this can turn into, I know he's still got another year, but he can officially be signed in this year. If you kind of wait too long, I'm afraid that he might just say, you know what, the hell with you. If you're not willing to give me what I think I'm worth, I feel like he's the type that would just eventually be like, yeah, all right, I'm done. I don't know. I feel like he has a very low tolerance to that shit.
The other thing,
who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? Who knows?
I've always been one of those people that are like, no, he's not leaving. But I don't know. The other side of it is sometimes I'm starting to, those thoughts are creeping in. Maybe he isn't going to stay.
With all the talk of him leaving, and then we'll move on to the next trade, there's zero facts to back up any evidence.
We don't know. And we know he loves the fame. He loves the spotlight, and he can handle Toronto media. It takes a certain kind of person to be able to come in and in that spotlight and be,
if Boudreau and Chuck didn't go south last year, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
True. Because that was shocking.
He's also not he's also not an idiot. He's a very intelligent young man. And if you're a goal scorer and a pure goal scorer like he is, where are you going to go as a UFA? You're going to go to a team who's got, $15 million to give you. Okay, fair enough. But where are you going to go to play with somebody who's going to feather you to puck as a centerman like Mitch Marner is? Where? And or William Nylander. That's a pretty solid trade off. If you're not on the line with Mitch, you're going to be on the line with Willie. I'm okay with that if I'm Auston
Yeah.
Matthews, right?
I think it all weighs on how they do.
I think you're right. I
Same
think
as Carl Dubas. Like, we know, like, unless you guys, you need to make some step. Even if it's just one round, like, of course, we're all going to be upset about it. But at the end of the day, it's progress. So if you can just get a little bit closer each year, which the past couple of years, we've not gotten any closer. But let's hope this year is to start, building.
What bothers me the most, and we'll get to the last couple of trades shortly, but what bothers me the most, if they had this team, forget if they does anything else, if they had this team last year, the year before, they would have went on through. This team is so much better on paper, at least, than past Leafs playoff teams, that it just irritates me that now it's still probably not good enough, because the East is just
Now
like the West is offloading players to the East straight time. I'm like, how is this going to shake out in our favor? It's not, right?
It just goes back to show that the playoff format sucks and it needs to go back. Like, even the players say the same thing. Like, and this is before this year. Like, no, like, I don't know. It should be the whole 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7. Like, I don't know. Of course, you're still going to have like your conference champions and things like that. But this whole like first round matchup of just East, I don't know. Like the 2 best teams in the league, like there's one of them are going to be out in the first round.
Yeah.
Makes
the
no
thing
sense.
is, the thing is with the arms race that's going on currently is that Dubas almost has his hands tied, in the sense that if you don't make another trade, all that means is you're leaving another player out there for one of your arms race teams to acquire, i.e. today, Tyler Bertuzzi. Is Tyler? Yes.
Yes.
Heartbroken, yeah.
Moved to
I thought
Boston.
we were gonna go.
So, like, if the Leafs would have picked him up, the Boston Bruins wouldn't have. That's a double win. Now, Dubas got to go out and try to find something to at least offset that, theoretically, to balance that score sheet. So, like, if the Leafs don't make more moves, they're really shooting themselves in the foot doubly if they got areas that they can improve. And if you're going to be serious about winning the cup, you have to improve those areas.
The only thing I would say to that, like, if we talk about reactionary moves from one team to the other, you could say that the Bruins going after Tyler Bertuzzi was reactionary to the Leafs getting O'Reilly. So do we need to go, you know what I mean? So do we need to go another step?
The funny thing is, and this will be our segue, the funny thing is, the area which would need to make a splash, the only area left, is that top line left winger spot. And turns out we shipped off a top line winger to, guess who? The New York Islanders.
To the New York Islanders for a 4th round pick, I think it was. Which, if you look at it, was it a 3rd? Because Engvall was a 7th rounder. So, I mean, at the end of the day, 3rd round. At the end of the day, it's an upgrade, essentially, if you keep that pick and, you traded a 7th round pick for a 3rd round pick, if you look at it that way. I'm trying to find a picture, because I seen a picture today of Mr. Engvall with his freshly shaved face, because we all know how Lou Lamoriello is. But I can't find it. I seen it earlier.
While she's looking, the reason I called him a top line player, because we all know he's not. If you're a Leafs fan at all, you know this guy's not a top line forward. After the acquisition, they've bumped him up to the top line with Bo Horvat and Anders Lee. And I was like, that is not going to end well.
But
maybe I'm wrong.
It's a
but
video.
you know what that says? That tells you how much.
Don't even look like him. Like, who is this kid? Yeah. That is not Giraffe Engvall.
Oh, God.
He made flourish, but he was never going to get first line minutes in Toronto or second line minutes. He barely could get third line minutes. So it just says how much further ahead we are than the New York Islanders, for instance.
Yeah, and you're not wrong, because I'll tell you one thing about Engvall, as my only compliment for the guy, is he got an elite level shot when he can get it off, which is very, very uncommon, because he tends to slow play down too much.
Where he just goes up and then he turns right quick and whips it. Like, how many goals did he score like that? It was crazy. He had the same move. The thing is with Pierre Engvall, that's so frustrating, is that he is so skilled in different ways, but he just don't do it. Like, you use that big old Hercules body that you got, because the guy is ripped, but you don't use it. Like, you would be so much more impactful if you just use your body a little bit more and, like, use your skill set a little bit more, like your speed and your checking and your forechecking. It's just, I don't know.
If he throws the net like Willie, like what Willie's doing this year, like in overtime,
Scary.
you'd have a very scary player, and that's the only thing that bugs me about. We had to get rid of Engvall. He wasn't coming back after the season, anyways.
No, probably not.
He's had enough of a test. That's the only thing with him is I think if he finally starts driving the net, then someone's got a player. But he's had plenty of chances. He kind of ran out of his chances.
That's what was so. I think that's what frustrated so many Leaf fans about Willie was same thing. Like you could see this potential, you could see this skill, this raw skill that you cannot teach somebody, and you don't do it. Like you don't use it all the time. And finally this year, and at the end of last year too, we got to see William Nylander. And he's arguably been our best player this year.
Oh,
I don't think Marno's been. There's no argument. He's been our best player this year. You know, the only competition being Mitch Marner. But I mean, overall, game in, game out, every game, William Nylander. No games off, no downtime, no slumps. Just solid.
You can move him anywhere. He's been on the first line. He's been on the second line. He's been down on the third line. He's back up on the first line. He's like almost turned into a Swiss Army knife, like another better Kerfoot. Like I said, don't kill penalties.
You got major first world problems when you're on your depth chart this season. Your fourth best forward is Auston Matthews.
Literally, yeah.
You got some serious first world problems. But leads us to our last trade. We traded Mr. Engvall and we got a 3rd round pick. We then turned around moments later and traded a 3rd round pick for.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, what do you got there, Mr. Paddy?
One second. Let me turn it around here.
So
Luke Schenn, practice use stick he gave it to me like in 2008, autographed it. I had it up on the wall because I loved Luke Schenn when he was with the Leafs.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd see the day where he'd be back. I absolutely love the trade.
And I love the fact that he wanted to come back.
Kylie, go ahead and read out the quote, will you? The
one I sent you guys?
Yes, please. Because that, to me, tells me everything I need to know about that trade.
Yeah, it was really cool, I must say. Okay, so it started about like his jersey number, because for anyone who doesn't know, McCabe came, like the trade for McCabe came the night before, and he had already been chosen number 2, like the jersey number 2, which is, if you don't know, is Luke Schenn's number when he played with the Leafs originally. So when we got Luke Schenn, everybody was like, oh my God, like McCabe has to give him number 2, right? So anyway, this is what Luke Schenn said about that. That number on that jersey means so much to me. Really grateful that Jake was willing to make the change. It started 15 years ago for me, and extremely excited to be back wearing the Maple Leaf. Any other team, I wouldn't care about my jersey number, but on this team, it's special to me.
Human eraser.
Yep, the human eraser, as per.
According to Raleigh.
So apparently what had happened was Luke Schenn had reached out to McCabe. I was like, hey, like, are you, I guess married to that number? And McCabe was like, no, not at all. Like, that's just kind of the number they give me. And they made the swap back. So now McCabe is wearing number 22 and Luke Schenn has his old number, which is great for anyone who has like old Luke Schenn jerseys. Like, go dust those babies off, and it's exciting.
It's interesting to hear Boudreau's comments on Overdrive, because he would have coached them this year and last year too, I guess.
Oh, did he speak about Schenn on Overdrive?
Yeah, he did, and he talked about his time in Tampa and how he never played every playoff game, but he was in and out of the lineup. But when he was there, he was very effective. But he also talked about how Schenn is the type of player he don't want a small role. He wants a big role. Mm-hmm. Frankie Corrado asked him, "Where do you foresee him? Who do you foresee him being played with? Like, what's the pairing going to look like?" And he really thought about it for like a solid 30, 45 seconds. And he said, well, at first I was going to say Morgan Raleigh, but he said it's probably going to be too many minutes for Luke. So he said, I don't know what that answer looks like, but he can come in and out of the lineup, and he don't think Luke would have a problem with it, essentially. So because we definitely have extra bodies, and that's probably what's going to happen, is like a rotation there. But
I could easily see skating seven defensemen.
That's what's happening tonight. So
I would have no issue with that either, because unless you strengthens your forwards to the point, which I'm hoping is what happens, that Bunting ends up dropping down and everyone kind of filters down one, and you really don't want to drop a forward, then skate one short, and you got that extra defenseman. You got fresh legs on the ice at all times in every defensive position and go to it.
And not to mention, sorry, he's another righty. By Hull, move over. Yeah. Get out of here. Timmins is a righty, Lily's a righty, and Schenn's a righty. This is the first time in like that I can remember in so long that we had 3 righties on the back end.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful thing because now you can actually move Brody, who've been playing back and forth, right? He's played both sides. He can play the natural left side if he chooses, because he does like the right side. But if he chooses to, he can play the left side, which would be more of a natural shot for him, and just gives you that flexibility in all situations, right? But again, the Luke Schenn thing for me, when I heard that quote, read that quote about how important it was to him to come back and how it wouldn't matter with any other team. That was enough for me. If anything doesn't matter with any other team, but it matters with the Leafs, then clearly it's more important to you in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
And I don't give a shit. I'm not expecting the world out of Luke Schenn. He wasn't that good when he was a Leaf. He wasn't that good in Philadelphia. He wasn't that good in Tampa Bay. He wasn't that good in Vancouver when it comes to production. But if you're just looking for a guy who's going to, I legitimately think the only role for him is your third pair, personally. But if you're looking for that guy who can go out there, kill penalties, can go out there and be tough to play against for 13 minutes a night, I'm fine with that. I'm not expecting the
league in hits.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
So that's his role. He's found his role. I don't think you need to complicate it any more than that. To put him up on in the top 4, I think you're only probably setting him up for failure, which is what I think has happened with Hall. Like, Hall is not the worst defenseman ever, and
he's not playing.
If you look at Twitter, every Leafs fan out there is looking for a 6'3" defenseman who plays the right side, who hits, kills penalties, and does all that. We already have one, $2 million. So, and if folks think you're going to go out and find that type of defenseman
for that price,
who don't give up the puck, all those types of defensemen give up the puck. That's why they're not in the top tier. So I think Hall will be done. But we did the same thing with Phaneuf back in the day. We set him up for failure. He was beyond the point where he was a top pairing defenseman, but we played him top pairing minutes, and he was like the pylon, as folks would say.
The Leafs were never good enough to not set people up for failure. Look at Morgan Riley coming into the league as a rookie, playing on a pair with Phaneuf for a little while. You look at Nazem Kadri coming in. Like, the expectations for these kids were so high because we had nothing else. They were all
that's kind of what happened. That's like Schenn, like, in my opinion. I know he played, I was listening again, I think it was Leafs Lunch, I'm not sure where I heard it, and I'll probably get some of this wrong because obviously I don't remember everything they said, but like, he was drafted, at the time when the league was kind of moving away from a big check-in heavy game, it was becoming more skill, as we know has happened over the last, 15 years. And they wanted him to come in and be this big, tough guy. So what he had done was he had put on weight, tried to get bulkier and meatier, which that then affected his skating. He was then slow. So the Leafs kind of set him up for failure in that sense too. So apparently after that, when he got traded to Philadelphia, he spent some time in the minors, then he got traded again, spent some time in the minors. He was back and forth. Then he signed with Tampa Bay that year, or I forget if he was traded or signed, whatever it was. Got into their lineup because they had a depleted defense core in their run, and he got into the lineup, and ever since then has never played another AHL game. Went on to win a cup. Then apparently he, according to Henny on Twitter, he said that Luke tried to come back to Toronto after that first cup with Tampa Bay, but at the time just didn't have space for him. We didn't have the money for him. It just didn't work. So he went back to Tampa Bay, won a second cup, and that's when he went ahead and signed with Vancouver after that.
I forgot he spent time in the minors.
Yeah, apparently he'd spent time in the minors. The story they were telling, it was really interesting. I wish I'll try to find the whole thing.
I'll tell you why I remember that is because after the trade that brought it was JVR for Schenn straight up.
JVR, yeah. Yeah.
And JVR came to Toronto, and basically, boom, you've got your top line left winger for Phil Kessel. Finally, a player who's worthy of playing with Phil.
One of the best trades in Leafs history, actually.
Exactly. That's my point. It was great. So it was shortly thereafter, after the first year, Schenn didn't really do anything. In year 2, halfway through, I'd like to say it was, maybe year 3, but year 2, he was in the minors, and everyone was like, well, That's maybe the best trade in Leafs history. Now, I mean, that's a tall order when you look at like the Gilmore trades and but in recent memory, when you're talking about steals, it might be when you're talking about acquiring of a top line winger or a top line player of any sort, when you can trade a guy who then goes to the minors to do that.
Well, get this.
He played a lot of time in the minors. He get called up, get sent back down, and then moved around to a bunch of different teams. And then I think it was when he went with Tampa Bay, he was on their minor team, got called up for a game in the playoffs or something. He went back to his like old school regular, like, all right, I'm just going to defend and I'm going to hit people. And he finally, I guess, played the role that he's meant to play and never did get sent back down and has never played a minors game since. I mean, that's been 3 or 4 years.
That's just indicative of a battler, though, right? I mean, that's the thing. You want guys who are not going to quit on themselves. He didn't. He's not going to quit on himself. He's not going to quit on the team. So, I mean, to me, with hockey, I'm always the first one to say it when we're talking about this stuff. To me, the personality and the character traits are more important than the stat lines. For me, heading into the playoffs, I don't care if he scored 0 goals or 30. What's he going to do when the pressure cooker is up and someone takes a run at Auston Matthews? And what's he going to do?
Yeah.
And I already know the answer to that with Luke Schenn. So that to me is what is most important in this trade, and that's why I'm so excited.
Funny story on Schenn though. In 20, I'm just looking at it. So his first year in Philadelphia, I guess they didn't make the playoffs. I go to the World Championships in Sweden that year. My nephew won the trip. So myself, my brother, and my nephew. Anyways, he's on Team Canada. Luke Schenn is. And the awful Game 7 against Boston where we blew the 4-1 lead in 2013. I'm watching that entire game with Team Canada in their conference room. So last going off, it's me at a table. Everybody else has gone to bed. It's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning in Sweden. It's me, Brian Campbell's brother, who was a huge Bruins fan at the time, and Luke Schenn. And without Luke Schenn actually saying, I know, I'm like just around a little round table, so we're chatting the whole night. Without Luke Schenn saying that I hope the Leafs lose, Luke Schenn said, I hope the Leafs lose. His body language, I think at that point he was still very bitter about the trade, hurt and bitter about the trade, because Burke said he would never trade him, right? So I just remember that moment because it was such an awful night. It was my birthday. It was horrible, but he was quite bitter at the time. I forgot he was on that team.
Paddy, you've got more stories and connections than I even care to pretend.
And Joe Bowen.
Yeah.
Literally, Joe Bowen can tell some stories, but Paddy can probably tell more, honestly.
Joe said hi, by the way, when I was in Toronto, Kylie.
Did he know you? Did he remember you?
Yes, Mike Ross introduced me to him.
Yeah.
So up in the gondola, got a nice tour.
Oh yeah, that's the same place we went up there and got a tour. I was playing with the machines and pressing buttons on the replay machine and sorry, Ryan, I know. Next time you go though, just get up, Joe.
Kylie. It wasn't about Paddy, Ryan, or Chad. It was all Kylie.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, he is coming to Newfoundland this summer. I've been talking to him, so we'll have to. Maybe we can get him an in-person podcast or something. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, we'd have to rent a studio and get that done properly, and that would be cool. I'd be all about it.
Okay, you're in the music industry now. You know people.
Yeah, I know people can set that up, no problem.
Will we get copyright trouble if I play this just audio clip of what Bruce Boudreau said today?
Nah, no one watches this podcast.
Through that, okay.
It's in studio. Bruce will be a part of the Leafs
TSN
panel tonight and a part of Trade Center tomorrow on TSN. So you coached in Washington, Anaheim, Minnesota, Vancouver. You've been a lifelong Leaf fan. Every time we have you on, even when you were coaching, we'd ask you, what do you make of the Leafs? The transitioning back into kind of being a fan and an analyst, how do you marry those two worlds? Like former teams that you have a connection to and then the Leafs who you clearly have a connection to?
Well, I mean, once I'm not working for somebody, I'm a Leaf fan. I mean, when I'm a Canuck, go Canucks. I'm not with the Canucks now, so, Leafs play them Saturday. I guess I know who I'm cheering for.
There you go, Bruce.
We figured that, Bruce.
There it is, right back in it. Yeah.
I think we're all human like that.
Yeah.
The teams that let you go, you really don't like to see them have success.
Sure.
For the short period of time, anyway. You like the players to have success because the the players you get fond of and you get close to. It's just the team you don't want to have success. But being from Toronto, I'm home every summer for long periods of time, and always been a Leaf fan. Marley's growing up, and so it's hard not to like the Leafs when you're coaching against them. All you want to do, you want to beat them so bad. Like it was the biggest games of the year when I was coaching against the Leafs. You want to beat them so bad, but because you got all your friends texting you.
You couldn't believe it. When I used to play in Hartford and Carolina, my season would be over, and I would come home and cheer for the Leafs, and he couldn't understand it.
That's O-Dog saying that. Okay, that's about it. But that was, so if anyone wanted to watch that, it's a clip on Overdrive's Twitter. But yeah, I thought that was super cute, and I wanted to share it. The only thing is I have no idea where the mic is on this, so I hope the audio came through pretty
audio
good.
was great.
Good.
Okay, good.
What stands out to me, my memory, because like I said, I always it's really hard to get an impression for what people are like with their online or their television persona, or their, how they carry themselves on podcasts, or what. It's really hard to get an idea for the real person unless you hear from someone who knows this person. And last year, maybe, or was it year one? Can't remember. We had Mark Curtin on for an episode during ALS Awareness Month. Now, Mark, if you don't know, is a former Toronto Maple Leaf. He's battling ALS right now. He's doing a lot of work in awareness and raising money for the foundation and whatnot. But he was a former teammate of Boudreau, who he calls Gabby, of course. That's his nickname, always has been, always will be. And the props that Mark has for Gabby still, like how they stay in touch daily, weekly, whatever's needed to keep that connection. And what a good guy he is, just all around good guy. I was sold. Not that I wasn't before. I always thought Boudreau was cool as hell. He's just a jolly dude, right?
I'd love to have him. Like, he's a guy that you'd go to war for, I think. Like, he's, like, if you had him on your bench, I'm not saying to replace Sheldon Keefe, because I love Sheldon Keefe too, but hire him as something and put him on the bench, and just to have him there and the passion that he obviously has for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think that would just, like, explode onto everybody else. Like, you can't not. I don't know. I see him on TV and the way just talking like that, and it makes me fired up. So I don't know.
I don't see how any player can come to Toronto. Any player, any professional hockey player who've dedicated their life to the sport can come to Toronto and go and be part of all these pregame rituals and these alumni events and everything that they go to, and see these guys in their 60s and 70s crying over each other and crying over the sweater and crying over the franchise. I don't know how you can watch that and not feel part of it. So there is that, right? There's a storied franchise there. There's so much history. The fans' passion is real, man. Like, we're idiots, yes, but like, it's real, right?
Just look at the excitement and the everything for Luke Schenn. And we just talked about, he didn't do all that great in Toronto, but yet Leaf fans are so pumped to have him back.
Well, he's still our guy, right? I remember when we drafted him. I
him,
was so excited.
4th, 5th overall or something like that.
Ron Wilson messed him up. I'll take that to my grave. Ron Wilson messed him up. I still recall back then, Schenn, which is a normal play right now, one hand on the stick, one hand free in front of the net, and Ron Wilson made him put two hands on the stick, and he looked like a statue out there. He didn't have the mobility, and he brought him up too early. I'm blaming that one on. I always really liked Schenn.
The thing, whatever it was the other day, I'm not sure. Like I said, it might have been Overdrive, but they were telling the story that I said a few minutes ago, and same thing. Like, they set him up for failure in a way. They didn't mean to. It wasn't intentional, but he was put in a position that A, wasn't who he was at the time, and B, wanted him to be this big, bulky, hitty guy. I mean, you're 20 years old. You're not coming into the league full of 30-year-old 35-year-old men, and just expecting to be a bulldozer out there at 20 years old. Well, even if you be the biggest guy in the world, you're still not going to have that confidence to do that.
The problem with Luke Schenn was he was expected of that. If you remember back when the draft happened the following year, which was the Tavares draft, right? Yep. Tavares was touted to go number 1, and Brian Burke swears that there was a deal on the table that said, if you trade us Luke Schenn, we will trade you the first overall pick, which would have been John Tavares, right? And it was still had Luke Schenn and the Kadri pick, which was the Leafs pick.
Who we got in that pick
for John Tavares. and they were like, "No, we're not trading Luke Schenn." That was the deal breaker. They're like, "No, we're not trading Luke Schenn for John Tavares." Basically,
it's touted so high, right? And it's just sad because had he had a better start to his career with the Leafs, I mean, it probably would never have turned out and been come full circle like it has. Like, God knows where he would have ended up and what would have happened to him. But everything happens for a reason. And let's hope that Lukey Schenn is our saving grace. He's not going to go out and score a game winner or nothing in Game 7, I don't say. But we've always wanted that physical defenseman. Like, how many times does a puck go in the corner and you see a player skating down and they're looking behind them? Like, it's just like, who gives a shit who's coming behind you? Like, your play, I don't know.
That play last night, that play last night when Hall ran over Nugent Hopkins only to get ragdolled. But let's not talk about that part. The hit itself, I was like, yes, every second shift, please. Pump it into my veins. I'm ready. Let's do it. Right?
It's so frustrating.
Like, one hit per year for the team, like, that's what we're getting. Like, 1 to 2 of those, good, abrupt, keep your head up, kid hits. 1 or 2 a year, that's all you're seeing because we don't have guys built for it, right?
No.
It was nice to see Hall step up. I'm not a big Justin Hall fan. I'm not a big hater either. Like you guys, wrong place, wrong time for him, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, putting him with Riley is just a bad idea. And
that was only just a placeholder for Schenn. I really think that's the case so that McCabe could get a bit of chemistry going with his guy and Gio could get back in line where he needed to be.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is what it is. That's the wrap, guys, for the trades, unless I'm missing something. Anything we missed? I don't think so.
No.
Well, guys, if you got nothing else, I think we'll knock it on the head. If you've enjoyed the podcast, guys, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We love that stuff. Drop a comment in the comment box too. We like to hear from you guys. Always like to hear from you guys. If you're looking for more DSC content, of course, Facebook is where you see pretty much everything we got going on. It's www.facebook.com/DeekSnipeSilly. We got a website, which is somewhat behind, but there's still a lot of content there. www.deeksnipesilly.ca. We're also on, of course, Twitter.
Spotify.
That's the audio stuff. Come on, Kyle.
Oh, my bad. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
But you're right. We're on anywhere you listen to your podcast: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that good stuff. You can get us there. Just search Deke Snipe Selly, and like I said, hit that subscribe button so you'll get all the latest stuff as it comes out. We got lots planned now and heading into the playoffs. But a big thank you, of course, goes out to our sponsor, which is the Delaney Hockey Program. You can check out all their programs at www.delaneyhockey.ca. Delaney Hockey Program, one of the premier hockey schools in Newfoundland and Labrador, offering programs for kids right from U7 right up to U18, different camps and two-line hockey programs. So again, check out their stuff. Great program, great coaches, and all good people all around. So again, guys, thanks so much thanks so much for tuning in, and I guess we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.